Hello again, Michael Ware with the IFC Warrior Wednesday program, bringing you today Matthew Peake. Now, you may know his name from a few different places in the past, especially if you pay attention to Brownells and whatever else, but he's the director of marketing now for the Rock Island Auction. Now, this is the world's most prestigious firearm auction site, and so I thought that this would be a real treat to bring Matthew on and visit about some of this stuff. So welcome, Matthew. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll begin.
Well, first off, thanks for having me. Normally, I'm putting on podcasts. I'm not normally the person getting interviewed, but this is exciting. Well, I was super late to the firearms world. I was going to school at the Kansas City Art Institute and decided to take a job at Brownells, having never fired a firearm before at 28 years old. And then from that point on, just kind of jumped in with both feet. I ran the photo and video departments at Brownells for the better part of 15 years, and then started at Rock Island almost 4 years ago, bringing a video aspect to them and then taking over the marketing department. So I've been involved in a lot of areas in the firearms world. I'm an avid hunter. I'm an avid shooter. And I just love it. Every single day I get to play with guns. I live an hour and 40 minutes away from work, and I go in early every single day just so I can walk through the racks and hold historic firearms.
You make that commute on a daily basis?
3 times a week, yeah. And I travel quite a bit. We go photograph collections. Our headquarters in Bedford, Texas. If you haven't been, you have to come down. It's a cathedral of collecting. It's just filled with beautiful guns. The space is cool, but I travel down there quite a bit as well.
Wow. All right. So I'm curious, I'll admit, you were going to school at an art institute?
Yeah. So I did my undergraduate degree at Waldorf College in Northern Iowa in video, directed TV news for a while, realized news was not for me. Went back to school, got a photography and new media degree, and then taught a little bit and freelanced all across the country for the better part of 3 or 4 years. And then heard about this job at Brownells. I didn't know what Brownells was. Other than Boy Scout camp, I didn't really handle firearms ever. Grew up in a fairly liberal household and took the job at Brownells, and Frank Brownell called me into his office the first day, threw me a bunch of American handgunners and a copy of Hell I Was There and said, figure it out. And from that point on, I dived in, both feet, read everything I potentially could. Anytime somebody went to the range, I'd tag along. I didn't even own a gun at that point. Took my conceal and carry class and took hunter safety at 29 years old, which all my friends have been doing this since they were, in diapers. But kind of found my niche. I love the outdoors. I love everything about the firearms community, from the mechanics of how guns were put together and the evolution of them, to the history, to taking them to the range, taking classes, or going out and hunting. I've gotten to hunt all over the place and I absolutely love it, but I had to figure it out at like 30 years old.
So you're telling me on day one, Frank Brownell says, come here. And he hands you some reference material and essentially says, don't screw this up. Now get out of my office.
Yeah, it was maybe a little bit more pleasant than that, but that was the gist of it. There was a bunch of old, I knew how to take photos and I knew how to shoot video, but I didn't know anything about the firearms world. So I was generally the people that the firearms world hates, but you get in there, you do the research, you have to put in the time and effort. Mm-hmm. And I studied photos from Ichir Nagata and Jamil Saeed, 2 of the greatest gun photographers to ever live. And just kind of figured it out. Night and day, you eat, sleep, and breathe it, and tried to find all the old timer books, Jack O'Connor, Elmer Keith, Skeeter Skelton, Jeff Cooper, all those books, because they were still readily available.
Yeah.
In my first shooting class, actually, we were shooting a video on competition shooting maybe 3 months in, and a well-known shooter that I'd never heard of showed up, and we're going to spend 2 weeks with him. And he goes, "Matt, you want to come out shooting with us on Saturday?" Yeah. I don't have a gun or anything. I'll buy some ammo. And it was Jerry Miculek. So I spent my first time really taking any knowledge in other than how to operate a firearm for the weekends with Jerry and Kay Miculek. So I was kind of blessed in that regard.
Golly, that's you. Do you understand that what you're talking about sounds as if it's almost a fairy tale to most people? Yeah, I got this job and I sat down and industry titan and legend Frank Brownell says, "You do your best, kid," and then he pats you on the butt and sends you to the game. With it, you sit down with it. I didn't know the guy, and it ended up being Jerry Mitchell. I mean, this is almost fantasy land. It's very, very cool.
You don't know how blessed you are in the moment. And looking back, I've been involved, since 2007, 2008. Frank Brownell was a major mentor to me. There was many nights that calls me up to his office at 3:00, and we stayed there till 8 or 9 o'clock, just talking stories, him talking about all the legends he knew as a kid and hunting trips. And he was really a blessing to my life, ingratiating me into the shooting fraternity. And, when you couldn't get ammo, somehow ammo found its way into the backseat of your car. If you needed a firearm for a hunt or you wanted to go on a hunt, somehow it got done. And I don't think the world understands how important Frank Brownell was to the overall shooting sports fraternity, but the hunting fraternity, the up-and-coming gunsmith, the engraver, he truly was a legend and really a blessing to my life. And but the industry was like that when I started. If you were interested, they would take you under their wing. And it wasn't just Frank. There were a ton of people at Brownells that, "Oh, you want to come turkey hunting? Oh, we're going to go run plate racks this afternoon. You want to do it?" And the answer is always yes. And so it truly was a blessing.
Well, I didn't know Frank as well as what I would have liked to, but I visited with many people who did. I remember I was sitting down before there was a Grinnell store. I was sitting down in Monty in the front room there, and how it is. It's a small reception area, 2 or maybe 3 down tables. I don't remember what it was, not a lot, and a little counter there where you could pick up at the window, right? And I was visiting with somebody, and I don't remember who it was. It was an NRA board member. It might have been Lance Olson. I'm not sure. Anyway, we were talking back and forth, and Frank popped by, and he was kind of walked up, stood there with his hands on his hips, or maybe his arms were crossed. I don't remember. And I had never spoken with him before, maybe just hello in passing, but nothing of substance, right? He looks at me, he's like, "You're a front counter guy. Quit working in the back." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "You're a front counter guy." He said, "You're a sales guy." He said, "You need to be out there." He said, "Quit working on guns." And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm the CEO of my tiny little company. I'm also the guy that sweeps the floors. I'm the billing clerk. I'm the guy that's readying all the freight and checking it. I do all those things. I have to. It's a small business, right? I don't have the luxury of just running my yap only. I actually have to do stuff, So and I thought to myself, who does this guy think he is? I mean, why would he say that? And then after a few minutes, it dawned on me. From more conversation and a deeper discussion, that he was really, really good about sizing things up, and he was very matter of fact, which I trended towards, and I do well with. I'm the same way. So it ended up being a situation where I look back on that with fondness, because that was kind of the beginning of our relationship, and I enjoyed visiting with him. I really did, and I enjoyed the touch that he put on other people's lives. And you touched on the Second Amendment and maybe the hunting outdoors aspect of it. But I mean, his work with the Des Moines Symphony, right down through donating huge sums of money to the local hospital. I mean, there are lots and lots of ways that he gave back and helped people over his time. And I'm eternally grateful that there are folks like that out there. So he's a great example of how to try and pay it forward with expectations, mind you. He didn't
Absolutely.
just throw out money and say, "Oh, y'all do well." He was like, "Hey," it was either unspoken or spoken, but what the expectations were. But this industry has a lot of those people, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you got to experience that, Matthew. I really now Pete and I are pretty tight. I mean, I love him. I mean, we visit a lot and we share time together, and I'm grateful for our relationship. So there are more out there. It doesn't just die with Frank. So I'm glad he was
Absolutely.
around and did his thing. So anyway,
Pete's a visionary in bringing the retail firearms world digitally. One of the first people to put together a firearms website. Um, he's done a lot of major things, and I've been lucky enough to work with him for a long time. And of course, we have Frank Brownell's firearm collection at Rock Island right now. And so
I thought that was right. Now that's not a small collection, is it?
no, it's going to be sold we started selling it in December, and we'll sell it over the course of a year or two. But Frank's firearms, just like he was as a personality, is very eclectic. He has a lot of very well embellished guns, from Rudolph Cornbrath to Winston Churchill to Lee Griffith, some of the modern masters. He was a great person to see talent in somebody and take them to the moon. But he also understood firearms. I mean, he wrote the Encyclopedia of Modern Gunsmithing. The Kinks books. Frank really knew the industry, so you can imagine what his firearms collection was like.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to share to the stage right there. For you, those of you listening, you're going to need to go to rockislandauction.com. But we're showing it up here at the moment. Can I navigate to his collection in whole, or how do your auction set up so we can view these things?
Well, we'll have a big May premiere coming up. The catalog's not live yet. It's coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
But if you click that view highlights, this is what we call our highlight portfolio. It's go right on the homepage, that big yellow button. Scroll down or go down. Right there.
Oh, yes, my bad. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
If you click on that, it's kind of some of the great highlights of that May premiere auction, and you can flip through it. Just works like a catalog. Some of his guns are in here. Specifically, if you go a couple more pages, I believe, one more. He has some beautiful shotguns in here. He has a great Rudolph Cornbrath, 1903. He has a Winston Churchill, who was a protege of Cornbrath's protege, Joseph Fugger. It's beautiful, beautiful Mauser. He has one of my favorite Lee Griffith pieces on 1873 that's engraved with ships fighting each other.
Wow. That doesn't surprise me. Frank was a Navy guy. Not many people know that.
Absolutely, he was. And he also played in the Iowa band, the University of Iowa band. People don't know that either. But he also was a connoisseur of the guns of Frank Sinatra. And we sold Frank Sinatra's Model 29, set a world record with that in December. And we have his engraved high power coming up here in May. So, of course, the famous singer, crooner of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Frank Sinatra. But
so when you say set a record, what exactly does that mean?
So at Rock Island Auction Company, we handle the finest guns in the world, undoubtedly. And we set world records every auction. So we're in the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest prop gun ever sold, which was Han Solo's DL-44 blaster pistol that was used in the very first Star Wars movie. But we set world records in platforms, but then also in categories. So like this Smith & Wesson Model 29, it's the highest priced 29 at when it all said and done. No Model 29 in history has sold for as much as that 29 did.
Do you recall what the amount was, Matthew?
I can't off the top of my head, but I do have a couple records for you that I did write down.
Why don't you?
I know you're a machine gun guy. And so last year we've set multiple world records specifically within the machine gun world. We had a Vietnam War Tet Offensive Bring Back AK-47 that set the world record. Highest AK ever sold, $411,250. The Stoner, the quintessential Navy SEALs Vietnam War gun, we set 2 world records. We set the overall Stoner 63 record, which was no, that was $411,250. The AK was $250,000. But we set the Stoner Cadillac gauge. That was the original manufacturer at $411,000. And then Knights Armament redid a bunch of those guns because they were all cut up. And the Knights gun sold for over $250,000 as well.
Jeez Louise.
Winchester 1894, we set a world record with last year at nearly $560,000.
So every now and then you roll up to work and you're there early, walking around, just minding your own business, ogling over things, and the boss rolls up and says, "Matthew, you've been a pretty darn good dude. So why don't you pick one and take it home?" Does that ever happen?
I sure wish that would happen, and I dream of that day. And if Kevin Hogan, if you are watching this, we could make that happen. No, but I mean, the great thing is every single day you find something new. Yesterday, walking through the racks, looking for guns to do videos on, an FBI shipped Colt Fit Special, new in the box, virtually unused. Serial number 2 Bren 10, the first prototype in 10 millimeter. Like every single day is like walking through a museum of excellence. And if you love firearms, any genre, but if you truly love firearms, every single day is something new. The last Thompson machine gun ever to be shipped out of the factory, we have that coming up in May. And it's not just that. It's not just these overall giant, heavy hitter, expensive guns. You know, I'm not in the budget range to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a firearm. I wish I was, but you know, we get great guns in that are still collectible, and at this point, almost everything's collectible. You know, and so you know, a pre-64 or a pre-war Model 70. You know, every American should own one of those.
Oh yeah,
everybody should own a 1911. If you don't own a 1911, you're doing yourself a disservice. Whether or not you like shooting them, it's a piece of American history. It's mechanically amazing. And honestly, they're my favorite handgun to shoot.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes, you know, as a gunsmith, I have people come in with some things that are pretty costly. I had a gentleman show up with, he had some really odd, I don't remember the name now, with some really odd drilling and 3-barrel. And he had, you know, I think it had 2 rifle barrels or maybe a shot barrel. I'm not sure. Anyway, and he also had a Wesley Richards, and he wanted some small things done and some professional cleaning. And I have a tremendous backlog. And he said, when can I pick it up? I'm like, this time tomorrow. He's like, oh, I figured you were behind. I'm like, I'm very behind. He's like, well, okay. He says, I'll gladly accept that, but why? I'm like, listen, this stuff is so costly and so valuable. I don't even want it in here any longer than I have to have it in here. So I said, I will handle this personally tonight through the night, and I'll have it done by tomorrow morning, without a doubt. And you can come get it, because I'm afraid to even pick some of these things up and handle them. Some of these things are so absolutely beautiful. And I know what you're saying. The Rock Island auction handles things beyond true heirlooms and things with true provenance. And so I think that's great, and people can afford that and can bid on those things. But some of the stuff that you guys handle, I I would put on gloves. No joke. I would put on gloves before I handle it. I'm sure you guys do that. So let me ask you about that. Have you ever run across something that you were afraid to touch, or you weren't sure if it should be handled?
Absolutely. I mean, that happens more times than not. For example, we had a truly historic piece out of the Norman Blank collection. We've been selling this collection. He's fine art European history. 1600s wheel lock from the arms cabinet of King Louis XIII. That the wheel lock was liberated during the French Revolution and then randomly showed up in the 1950s. So as they raided the castle, they stole everything. And I'm talking silk inlay into the stock, gold and platinum inlays woven wire through it. And it hadn't been mishandled, but it was very, very delicate. Enough so where we moved it in a hard case. You wear nitrite gloves every single time you touch it. Well, I'm in a room trying to prop this gun up and light it and not show how it's propped up and all these things. You know, it's one thing if you're, you know, a $1,000 1911. It's another thing when it's a pricey relic that the most prestigious museums in the world are looking at. And that, I had a lot of anxiety photographing and filming that just because of how delicate it was. But, you know, there's a lot of guns. You know, we had Nimsky's seminal masterpiece called Black Beauty, and very well documented historic gun. And that we had the original ink pulls from it, these like pieces of like transparent paper that they inked the engraving and then put it on. And we're trying to prop it with that, and they almost crumble in your hands. Another one, we had this gun called the Marchfield Find, which you hear of these like American picker style, like, oh, we found this in Granny's attic. Well, this was truly the case. A man ordered an 1886, custom 1886 in like 1889, stuck it up in his attic in the Northeast and left it there. His great-grandchildren found that gun. It's in mint condition. The nails had not been removed on the box. Wow. When we received this gun, a true like time capsule. The packing material was all still in there. It's in a wooden crate. Still had the hand-labeled shipping label on it. But then the action had never been cycled outside the factory. Yeah. So you're trying not to do it. We have Colt Single Action Army said cylinders have never been turned, you know, from the early 1900s, late 1800s. And so every single day is kind of like that. Yeah, you wear nitrite gloves. You make sure that the humidity in the room is always perfect because these things are truly museum items. They are truly time capsules. And I mean, it's kind of fun just to be in the same room as them. But as you handle them and try to prop them up just perfectly to get the right image of it, it is quite nerve-wracking.
Well, you know, you're touching on something that you mentioned earlier, that you had paid attention to specific, what would you say, gun photographers. Like that's a thing. Most people listening to this don't actually understand that. When you look at, I'll display this screen again. Excuse me. For those of you out there who are listening, you'll have to go to rockislandauction.com and take a look. I'm on the About Us page. And when you see something like that, gold inlay, very ornate, but the lighting is just right. It's capturing everything that this firearm was meant to be, because yes, it probably goes bang and functions and all this other stuff. That's fine. But this was meant to be a work of art, and an artisan built this and put it forward. And now you have to capture that in still or video photography, if you will, and put it out there for everybody. It's not a small thing, Matthew. I know what you're talking about, but I don't know if everybody understands what this kind of photography requires. I mean, look at this. You've got everything staged out there just right, so that people can see it and understand it. But that isn't an accident. I mean, so what planning that did you go through in order to do what I'm seeing here and these kinds of things well? I'm curious about that.
Well, we have amazing photography department at Rock Island at Brownells. I did all the photography, but to photograph a beautiful firearm, you have to think it's reflective, it's matte in the same regards, and you want to be able to feel the texture. If you cannot feel the gun, the smoothness of the Damascus, or the checkering on the backstrap of a 1911, or the carved checkered grips of a single action army, that's first off, you have to have proper light and proper shadow. You have to also be able to set a tone with it, because throwing one light up and just getting a good photograph is not good enough for the gun. And when you're photographing a gun, you have to think about how you want people to feel, how best to prop the gun, and then how to make that gun pop off the surface. And you have a fraction of a second to make somebody care about this innate object that they're seeing on a screen. We're all flooded with imagery, but it's our job to make you care about that firearm in an instant, and then do justice to the firearm, do justice to the people who created the firearm, and then do justice to the collection that it comes from. So there's a lot of responsibility there, but photographing a firearm is different than photographing anything else. And you have to be able to bring it to the greatest detail on the highest level to be able to do it right. Everybody with a cell phone photographs their guns and they plop it down on a bench with some spent brass. But, is there tangents involved? Is the backlight right? Are you getting it in a three-dimensional world? And maybe I'm getting a little bit too technical here.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Ultimately, to truly photograph a historic piece, because a lot of these pieces have never been photographed, is such a responsibility. You have to take the time to do it right, and you have to do it justice. And so me looking back, I had a creative director that would tell me, I want you to make it look like Jamil's photos. And Jamil at the time of Cheer Nagata, the greatest gun photographer that ever lived, had retired. And Jamil Saeed, who photographed every publication you can think of from 1990 on. I finally found his phone number and called him, and I was like, I don't know how you're doing this. How do I replicate this? And I think there hasn't been a week that's gone by where him and I haven't talked since, and that was 14 years ago. I think it's important for people to, if you're a photographer or you're a videographer, you have to look at other people's work, and you have to look at the right people's work. And when you're doing studying on anything, whether it's the history of a firearm or the photography of a firearm, you have to go backwards and see who the best people in the world who've done that. And then you expand upon it, because right now it's easier than ever to make great photographs. Equipment's cheaper, lighting's cheaper. The access to firearms is abundant. And honestly, telling the story. You got to tell the story within the photograph, and that's the most important thing. Your photograph can be subpar, but if it tells the story, then it's a success. Sorry to get long-winded with that.
No, that's I appreciate the passion. I appreciate the context. It's like this in most everything that we do in life. I remember it's just been a few weeks ago. My daughter was going to be on, she's only 16, but she was going to be on a radio program, right? And she's like, well, I'm not sure exactly what to say. And I'm like, well, you could stand up there and go down through your regular bullet points and make sure that you get your points across. And I said, and you can try and do that. But I said, I've never had as much success with that as I have telling a story. And she didn't respond. She didn't say anything. And so I'm like, well, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm like, you can talk about this. She was going to talk about the NRA Yes program, the Youth Education Summit, right? And I said, you can go down through your bullet points and tell people what it is. And I said, well, at the risk of sounding snarky, Caitlin, I don't think people care. I said, I don't think they care that much about that. I said, but they may care about your personal experience. They may understand. You may be able to relay to them a story that includes you and your personal reflection and your journey as it regards NRAS. And now, because you've given them a framework, you've given them, yes, the bullet points you wanted them to understand, but you've offered it to them in a way that says, this was important to me and this is why. I think it matters then. It will stay with them. And that's exactly what you're describing. You're trying to illustrate a story in meaningful ways. And I can appreciate that. We all try and do that in one way or the other.
That is pretty much my career summed up, is how do I take it from an inanimate object to make somebody care about it by telling a story? And whether it's a story of how this gun came to be, how this platform came to be, what happened to this gun in its life. So we're talking manufacturing. Is it this specific gun? We've gotten to handle Teddy Roosevelt's Smith & Wesson that's on the screen right now that he had built to ride up San Juan Hill with. Of course, he ended up taking a single action army because they brought it up from the Maine. But this was the gun that he had built for that. It's a rare caliber because it was in the military caliber. I tell you, one of my greatest experiences was when I was at Brownells working with Rock Island Auction Company, and Elmer Keith's number 5 came up. One of the most historic revolvers of all time. And they're going to bring it. I asked them to bring it to Brownells. I assembled a group of people to come here and do a lecture on it for a video. And they gave me an afternoon to photograph it. Well, I spent 2 weekends prior just trying to light it perfectly before I even got the gun. So I had to stand in, all that, because you have one small amount of time to be able to create an image that could affect generations, or how people see that firearm, or how people see that person that held that firearm. And so you have a tremendous responsibility to tell a lifetime of stories within an image. And within the videos that we do at Rock Island, that's what we try to do every auction, is be able to breathe life back into these firearms. I always use the terminology, you blow on the embers of the history to start that flame again, to make somebody care in their heart, not to get all sentimental, but that's what it is for me in the firearms industry. I love it, and I want other people to love it. And it's a great way to get people into history. It's a great people for historians to get into firearms. It's history you can hold. And the great thing is if you own a firearm, you have history with that firearm. It makes it important. Now I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, are you seeing the same old pickers and grinners and the same old folks doing the buying and the selling, or are you seeing new people? Because there's a lot of new folks in the Second Amendment realm now that weren't there 6 years ago or something like that. So there's been quite an uptick in ownership and buying and general interest. Is that moving over into auction and collecting, or are you seeing any of that?
Well, we'll always have the old standbys, right? Once you got the bug, you're always going to be there. But we see a whole new group of people getting into firearms. I think the firearms industry felt stagnant for a while, and it was the AR-15 and it was the polymer pistols. And the biggest new thing was putting a red dot sight on it. And people were looking for something new, and so they went backwards. And so we see a whole new group of people coming into the collecting world. And Rock Island started doing these on-time auctions that have been wildly successful, where you don't have to leave the comfort of your easy chair to be able to scroll through and bid on, some of these truly historic pieces. And so we see quite a bit of, I wouldn't say younger people, but new people. We are seeing an influx of younger people as the influencer world has become more adept to classic and historic firearms. But you see this migration happening right now, where you see, 30-year-olds getting into vintage Winchesters or single action armies or military 1911s. And it's pretty interesting to see that evolution. And I think the great thing is you see the older people that are in the industry, the veterans, if you will, ingratiating these new people into the world who might be a little bit more excited and a little bit more, I guess, wild. You see them in the auctions where, you have guys in their late 20s, early 30s throwing up their bidder card and like yelling, being excited about it. It's pretty great. And we're embracing that. Even me, I'm in my mid 40s and I was late to the game, but my collection continues to evolve depending on what I'm into at the time, from premier hunting rifles to I'm a big revolver shooter. I handgun hunt, and that has been my mainstay for a long time. But now getting into provenance pieces that belong to somebody important. And I don't think we can count out what pop culture has done for the firearm collecting world. As we get prop guns in, they sell for more and more money. We had the rifleman's rifle. We've had a bunch of Clint Eastwood guns. We had Steve McQueen's mare leg and, of course, a Han Solo blaster. But we have movie guns come in, and people so badly want to be like, oh, I remember when I saw, Tombstone. I want that gun. Or Chuck Norris passed away today. I don't know if you've read that, but now I need to go back and watch Chuck Norris movies. And, are mini Uzis going to become the new thing because people are rewatching Chuck Norris movies? It's crazy how that affects it.
Well, there's a culture here that you're describing that is growing. For example, I was always kind of a gearhead, but the truth of the matter is, I probably don't care a lot about the overwhelming majority of the cars that go across Barrett-Jackson or Meekum, right? But I can assure you, on my TV in the shop in January, Barrett-Jackson's auction is going to be running that week. It'll be on there going, So years ago, I wouldn't have even bothered with that. And, maybe I had checked out YouTube or something for the highlights to see what were the, the most exotic or the like you said, the most interesting barn find, and then maybe the top 10, selling cars just because of the dollars, right? Now I like to have it go. I enjoy watching the heck out of it. It's fantastic. And so it's interesting to see that idea play out in terms of firearm ownership and that auction. You're broadcasting these things live through YouTube, aren't you, or other places?
Absolutely. So we have 3 premier auctions a year, generally May, August, and December. We broadcast the whole auction live, multi-camera setup. We do a ton of content leading up to it. 6-8 weeks out, we're doing videos, blogs. We're doing all social media commentary on all of our auctions. So we have 3 big premieres, but then we have every 2 weeks, we have an on-timed auction. And now what we're starting to do is doing a live broadcast from our boardroom in Bedford, Texas with special guests. We did our first one about 2 weeks ago. We'll do our next one next week on Sunday, starting at about 11:30, and we go for about 4 or 5 hours. And we make commentary about what's coming up, what we're seeing, what we like about it, topics within the firearms world, and try to make it have some back and forth so we can talk to people, can comment on things, they can ask us questions. We can talk about specific firearms in the auction or firearm platforms or what's really going on in the world. And we found that before, when you went to the gun show, that was the community. When I grew up, or even when I first started at Brownells, the gun shows were starting to fizzle out in the way that we used to know them. But that's where the fraternity lived, right? That's where you got your knowledge. You got to see the old boys club. You got to look at, I know this person, Bob's going to have something good on his table. That's kind of fallen by the wayside. So we're trying to take it upon ourselves to be able to have a place for that fraternity to go so we can interact, so we can see each other more. And hopefully they'll eventually come to the premier auction because it is truly an event. But if not, at least we can engage with them because let's be honest, we're nothing without the customer. And we want to be able to give them the most information and the best possible, information for them to be able to make a decision on. And ultimately, like everybody wants that teacher, right? And we try to be that.
You're describing an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And it should be an experience. I mean, if it's just purchasing a gun, it's commerce.
Yeah.
And that's less important to us. What's really important to us is creating a lifelong customer, a lifelong lover of firearms, a lifelong lover of history, and we can all be together and help each other progress the industry forward.
Sure. Well, we've had trouble with YouTube. We had our YouTube channel nuked in early January, and we literally just got it back. And the claim is that we had said or done something that violated their sales policy. So I hope that this video doesn't put us back on the outs because it shouldn't, because I'm not selling anything. But we're talking about an auction service that makes arrangements to take these things and make them available, which is all legal, by the way.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting how we're framing this and how we're looking at this, again, from the perspective of the photography, the video, whatever else, but showcasing the provenance of some of these things and talking about a user experience. And I think that that's very important to understand.
Social media is very polarizing. That's the world I live in. We create content and advertising, but it becomes difficult, especially when legislation is passed or different political parties get involved, specifically within the censorship of the firearm language. And we see that, we can't use Google AdWords. That you can't advertise on Google anything about a firearms. Now, we are a brick and mortar building. We've been in this world for more than 30 years. We have regular audits. We do everything by the letter of the book. But sometimes that doesn't matter to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're broadcasting one of our live things on Rumble just because of that, which is a great platform. But we use all of those because those are our biggest availability to bring new people in and to interact with the people that are already involved. And so I think we see a lot of that changing, but it ebbs and flows, right? And so as much as the 2A community has been hit over the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like we've never been in a better place.
Okay.
And we're seeing that firearms videos are now being recommended on meta platforms. And you got to be careful about the language you use. You cannot say sale. We don't even most of the time say auction, but is available, that kind of thing. But everything we do is absolutely legal. We have a full compliance team. We have a team of lawyers, and the way it should be. But yeah, you have to watch it. Brownells when I was there, had their YouTube nuked and then finally got it back. And we weren't doing anything. We weren't trying to sell anything. It was how-to videos, Yeah. And now with AI censorship, it becomes even a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. They're using that stuff universally, and sometimes it does some good, but there's a lot of times where you get caught by something that AI doesn't interpret properly. And unfortunately, the offense is levied, whether you like it or not. And so now, or you're going to go argue with AI over the nature of what they already got wrong once. They're not very forgiving. So there are some problems out there. I mean, I understand that AI truly does have its place. I've got no fundamental problem with that.
Right.
but don't believe that it's wise to have it take the place of judge, jury, and executioner. That's not what we want. So we fight ourselves there, whether we like it or not. But okay, so real quick, have you run across something that you thought that blew your mind that was so odd? I'm not talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive or rare, but what was something that truly made you raise your eyebrows in your time with Rock Island Auction?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, there's so many interesting things that cross the plate that come to mind. The historic stuff always blows my mind. Okay. In an on-timed auction, literally 2 weeks ago, we had an M1 carbine that was present and used during the Battle of Iwo Jima. It had shrapnel come through it. But of course, like Ulysses S. Grant's pistols, Teddy Roosevelt's pistols. One gun that I kind of fell in love with was, if you've seen the film Out of Africa, right? Or are interested in the hunting world, we had one of Dennis Finch Hatton's guns, the Robert Redford character in Out of Africa, which if you read his books, like it's pretty amazing, his life in wild Africa hunting. We've had one of his guns that I did a video on. Honestly, I'll tell you about the first time my mind got blown. I was at Brownells. We're filming at Rock Island Auction Company, and I just started getting into revolvers, and they had Elmer Keith 3844, so the precursor to the 357, Douglas Wesson, the vice president of Smith & Wesson, who developed the registered Magnum, his gun that he toured all over the world with and hunted with, his registered Magnum, and Phil Sharp, the developer of the 357 registered Magnum, all on one table. That for me was like, it's like that scene from Wayne's World where they play Dreamweaver and then somebody has to smack you upside the head. But honestly, every auction has something like that. We had Skeeter Skelton's famous flat top. We've had guns used in every world war. Growing up in the 90s during Desert Storm, General Schwarzkopf was kind of like a national hero at the time. And we just sold General Schwarzkopf's collection. So getting to handle the guns that he used and he had were pretty amazing. As far as weird stuff goes, I mean, we have one-offs all the time. We had a 30-06 Thompson submachine gun. There was one made that we sold. Just strange things like that. Prototype guns. We have coming up in this auction, the Bren 10, the Miami Vice gun, the gun that Jeff Cooper, after the Miami-Dade shootings, really wanted to create a bigger caliber. So we have serial number 2, the very first 10 millimeter Bren 10, which is a piece of history. The movie guns are always amazing. John Wayne's gun from True Grit, we had a bunch of the Clint Eastwood guns were cool, but every single auction is like that, where you're like, oh man, I get an opportunity to play with this. Trying to think of, when you get to handle Patterson and Walker's historic early Colts, the first 2 Colts that the original Frontier Texas Rangers used, and how delicate they are, and pulling back the handle and a trigger popping out because there's no trigger until the hammer's cocked. That stuff is always amazing. But we get stuff in that has stories that, like, until you read it, oh, that's just another 1911. No, this was the singer that flew across the Burma humps, during World War II, and they were shot down. Or early Maxim machine guns with suppressors on it. It's just every single time it becomes really you get real geeky into this stuff. Something for pop culture. One of the coolest things we ever had was we've sold out of Tom Selleck's personal collection a lot of his guns, specifically stuff from like Quigley Down Under. We sold his Fitz Special from Blue Bloods that he used in Blue Bloods, which was an actual Colt Fitz Special. Those guns are always awesome. Man, there's just so many that
I only asked for one, Matthew. Come on, man. But I'll listen to this list all day long.
It's truly a pleasure, but it's also overwhelming because we make it look common. But a 1 of 1,000 Winchester, to handle one is amazing. But we had Jimmy Stewart's from Winchester 73 that we sold. Like that gun alone it was amazing to have in the studio. We sold Frederick Remington paintings. We just sold an Enigma machine, one of the finest Enigma machines ever from World War II.
Wow.
It's every single day is kind of like Christmas when you're 5 years old when you work there. So it's really hard to narrow it down.
You're hiring, right?
All the time. We're always hiring.
I was going to say, it sounds like quite a place to work. There's no doubt about it. I think that there's a lot more of this stuff out there that's long since lost, or maybe won't be found than people realize. He's long since gone now, but one of my dear friends, granddad was a career gunsmith, very good one, by the way. He had a local gentleman. I've told this story before. He had a local gentleman that rolled up with some sort of old gun routinely wanting to hawk it, after his granddad died. And my buddy's granddad, who told me this story himself, by the way, didn't ever want to mess with it. He thought, well, this guy's probably just trying to make a quick buck, and I'm not going to give him $1,000, because it was this Teddy Roosevelt era gun, and it was a long gun, but it was exceedingly short. And so the first thing that my gunsmith buddy thought was, well, some guy has taken a hacksaw to this and ruined it, and there's probably almost no value in this thing whatsoever. So he never bothered with it, right? Over and over and over the course of a year or two, this guy kept coming back and wanting to peddle it, but was willing to take less money all the time. And so finally, I think he just gave him some mercy money. Yes, I'll buy it. Here's a few $100. Don't come back and bother me with this again. And so he stuck it in the safe, and off he went. And so a few years later, whatever else, he was rummaging around, ran across this thing and said, you know what, I better clean that thing up and see if there's any value there at all, or see what the deal is. And he gets to rummaging around, and apparently on the buttstock was a brass plaque or whatever else. And he sees that it's obviously U.S. Army marked, and there's a serial number, whatever else. So he doesn't go any further. He records the information, and apparently you know about this, I'm sure. You better tell us. But you can send this information off to the Army or the Armed Forces or somewhere. And if they have any information on it, they'll remit that information, right?
Yeah. Yep. Freedom of Information Act made that pretty easy to get.
Okay. All right. So he does that. And he finds out apparently it was specifically built for Roosevelt and his Rough Riders so they could draw these things short out of a scabbard on horseback. And so supposedly there was, I don't remember the number, Matthew. I'm going to say this and I'll be wrong, but it was like 13 or 19 or something like that were ever made. And they only have whereabouts on 4 of them. And so this thing had tremendous inherent value, and nobody knew, And so he immediately became paranoid, called the bank and was like, hey, can I take this thing up to your place and set it there? We can put it in your vault order, because I'm not even sure I should keep it sitting around in my basement. So he did that, and later on he ended up selling it. And I wonder, if I remember the story right, some large place bought it. I don't know if it was NRA or some organization bought it. And I probably should try and track that down. But he didn't know. The guy who was peddling it didn't know. And maybe his granddad didn't know. I don't have any idea. But that stuff's out there, waiting to be brought out to the public and waiting to kind of be unveiled. And a lot of that stuff makes its way into the trash, or who knows where it is. I mean, I don't know, but it's out there.
It surprisingly, it happens all too often. And we find ourselves, we have a whole team of researchers, describers that are experts in their field, but we have a giant library. And they say, if you start collecting, buy the book before you buy the gun, do the research. But sometimes it's the other way around. If you really want that gun, I've been guilty of that. But ultimately, we've had tons of guns come in where there's almost no history. They come in with, we're selling granddad's guns, and it's something truly priceless, you know? it's amazing. And I think the important thing is people didn't always document. That's what you really need to do. If you're starting a collection, you need to document it. I mean, more information is always more important. And I think that's even with modern history, we just had a couple Al Beeson guns, of course, the famous gunsmith of Jack O'Connor, right? One of the greatest rifle makers of the modern era. And we had 2 rifles that came in fleur-de-lis checkered stock, both built by Roy Weatherby himself before Weatherby was Weatherby, built on Mauser actions. And if it didn't have the documentation, they were just another gun, right? Yeah. But since they had correspondence with Jack O'Connor and Al Beeson and Roy Weatherby, like those became something else, right? The same thing with these military guns. That gun that was at Iwo Jima, if it wasn't documented by the people that handled it there, it's just another M1 carbine, the most produced gun of World War II. You have to do your research. And honestly, researching it is almost as fun as buying the gun itself. And it can be done for anything. So in the firearms world, the FAL world ebbs and flows, right? As we get the same thing that used to be with AKs, as we get parts kits in, people start, I have to have a Russian, I have to have a Romanian. It's the same thing with FALs. They're just importing these Lebanese FAL kits, true Belgian-made FALs and parts kits. Well, it got me going down a rabbit hole, like what was happening in the late 70s and early 80s in Lebanon and Beirut. And then you find out the 82 Marine Corps barracks bombing. Jack Carr just wrote a book on it. Fred Burton wrote a book on William F. Buckley getting abducted, the CIA, William F. Buckley. And so you start going down these rabbit holes and thinking, this gun could have been used here. This could have been used here, and doing research. But that's what brings more value to that firearm for me anyway. And provenance is provenance, right? Yeah. Like once the history is there, they can't take it away.
Yeah.
And so a lesser condition gun might be worth more than a high condition gun if it has the right story with it.
So you're telling me, I'm a simpleton. So I'm gleaning for this conversation that the hundreds of firearms boxes that I have to go with the things in my personal collection, I shouldn't have thrown away.
Oh my gosh. So,
because I have.
I was lucky enough to come so late in the game that I haven't thrown away anything. And to my wife's chagrin, like I have a whole storage shed of boxes and papers and but you see this like early Smith & Wesson box, early Colt boxes, even going back to the turn of the century, with the early Colts, the single action armies. If you have a good box, the box brings almost, I don't quote me on this, it depends on the box and the gun, but it can double the value. You have sales receipts, hand sales receipts. People threw all that stuff away back in the day. And to have that's also a time capsule, it's pretty interesting. I mean, even spare parts, right? Like a cockeyed hammer or, a humpback hammer for a Smith & Wesson or, old King sights for guns. They bring a premium. It's all history and it's all of value. And there's always somebody looking to refurbish or do something like that, but it's not like the old stuff. And it's pretty fantastic when you do come into that, these old gunsmith shops. I can't imagine what Bob Brownell's office looked like when he passed away in the 90s. From 1939 to then, just the accumulation of history. He was a famous 44 associate with all the great writers of the time. Like, I can only imagine what was in his desk drawers.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this leads into a question that I wanted to be sure that I asked, and I almost lost, I did lose track of it, but your conversation here reminded me. If we run across something that we wonder if it has value, what's the best practice from the point of wondering moving forward? I mean, and I ask that because some people immediately go to the gun shop, or some people immediately go to a gunsmith and, hey, refurbish this, make it like new. Right. So before any of these things get done, and if you're wondering, A, does this have any value, or B, if it does, what should I do with it? What should people be doing? Because I would venture to say, in my experience, most people do this wrong. So go ahead and walk us through that.
You know, it's I'll tell you what I would do, knowing what I know and having the best archive of gun prices and in history at my fingertips at Rock Island. First, I go to the internet and first figure out what even is this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's Remington Rand, World War II, 1911. Mm-hmm. I want to understand it better. Books are available, but there's a lot of online resources that are very valuable. You can go to Rock Island's blog site, and we have hundreds and hundreds of blogs that they're history books in short form. If you're interested in truly understanding the value, and we might not give you a dissertation on it, but Rock Island has free appraisals. All you have to do is call, and we can set something up. Whether or not you want to sell it, we provide the service where if you're even interested or understanding what you have, a team of experts will look at that. We'll look what they've sold for in the past few years and be able to give you that information. But you should utilize that resource to understand value and appraisal. But you should also do the homework, find the book on it. There's so many great firearms books, and now they're somewhat hard to find, but you can still find them out there. But there are tons and tons of great pieces out there right now. I mean, you look at from Elmer Keith to Skeeter Skelton to John Taff, and that's almost 100 years of people writing about guns just in that realm, handguns. And a lot of that stuff is online. And within our blogs, we reference what information we're pulling from, and we have a very, very vast library. And we generally have people, publications, museums reach out to us to ask to use our photo, to use our blogs, to use our writing, or to have us write something on their behalf. And a lot of times we do it.
Wow. As I'm sipping down through here, for those of you listening, I'm on rockislandauction.com, and I clicked on their blog. They're putting new content up here every day or two. Yep. So it's not like we're sifting down through 4 or 5 blogs to read among. It appears as if you've got a ton of them. I didn't realize that there was quite this much material here and content to go through. That's absolutely fantastic.
So we have a team of videographers, we have a team of photographers, we have a team of writers. We launch on average 3 1,800 word plus blogs a week, multiple short form video content. During premiere cycles, we're launching 2 to 3 videos a week, and full long form videos. They can range anywhere from 2 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes, about every single topic that you could think of, whether you're into military, whether you're into European high art antiques, whether you're into a specific piece of history, whether you're only interested in pre-war adjustable sight Smith & Wessons. We have content for you, and we continue to put it out, and we're always open for suggestions. So email me at Rock Island Auction Company. If you can't find something, we'll create it. If there's any value there, we'll create it. And honestly, there's value in everything. Whether you were talking about when I started, they were $100 Mosin Nagant rifles have now become collectible, specifically in the sniper realm, all the way to first generation Glocks to 6 and 7 figure historic masterpieces and everything in between. We are there as a resource for the collecting community. And we want to hear what you have to say. If there's something that we can help with or that we can execute from a content standpoint, we want to do that.
Wow. That's fantastic. Man, that gives me a lot to think about. I hope that people are paying attention to this. Let me ask you this. Before we go, again, thank you, Matthew Peake, for being on today. Again, from Rock Island Auction. You can find them at rockislandauction.com. What questions or comments am I not making that we should be covering here?
Oh, let me look at my notes. I actually took some notes. You know, I think the biggest thing that I can leave you with is caring for people in the community. Everybody as a kid wants that old person to put their arm around them and say, come here, kid, I'm going to tell you everything I know, and I'm going to make you successful.
Sure.
Not everybody has the ability to have a mentor. However, the community becomes a mentor. They were for me. They are for many people. You just got to find your community. And I think ultimately, whether you're wanting to acquire firearms, shoot firearms, get in the field to teach your kids how to shoot a firearm, whether you want to collect or you're just interested in history, the firearms world is for you. Whether or not where you are politically doesn't matter. Where you are at in the country doesn't matter. Everybody has different regulations. But ultimately, the firearms collecting world has a way of bringing people in and helping them to be successful. Also, it's a great asset class. If you want to make money, invest in the stock market. But if you want to have fun with it and not lose money, invest in firearms because they're always there. And most of the time they go up in value. And, you know, I just appreciate it so much being able to come on and talk like this. Normally I'm not in front of the camera too much, but thank you so much. And, you know, thank you guys all for watching. You know, I always say this when I'm making speeches. The giving of your time is the most important thing you can give. And so I always appreciate people hearing us out and listening to what we have to say.
I agree. We're given an amount of time on the earth. We don't know how much it is, but to be gracious with what we have is very, very important because it's truly a commodity that most people don't understand. So I agree with you 100%. Thank you for your willingness to come on and visit with us. Thank you for sharing some of this stuff. There may be some folks out there listening that this is all very normal. They've all considered it. All of these names, all of these weapons, all of this history is very known to them. But I would wager that most people listening, there's a lot of new material here and a lot of new things to think about. And I think that's super important. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. In closing, Matthew, is there anything that you want to say before we round out?
No, I just that I appreciate being able to come on. And if you get a chance and you want to look at some beautiful guns, we have the May premiere coming up here any day now. The new catalog will be out, you know, well over 1,000 firearms just at your disposal.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. We appreciate having you on again. rockisland.com. rockislandauction.com. Go check it out. And we may have more to say about this. This conversation has made me think about some things that I want to ask Matthew about off camera. So maybe we'll get to that. Thank you all again. And as always, go to IFC's site, become a member, support us. We've got a list of trusted partners there, guys and gals, that we really want you to see and use because they help us help you. And they made it easy to do that. So thank you again, Matthew Peake with Rock Island Auction. Take care.
Thank you.